We are back with V-Video Lobo, the only villain Superman can't defeat. So if you like these videos, be sure to like, subscribe if you are new to the channel, and don't forget to hit the bell at the top to get all notifications. In the bright morning sunlight of Metropolis, the bustling city with skyscrapers shining under the blue sky was suddenly covered by a terrifying darkness. A huge army of Lobo-like entities, with gray skin, long, messy hair, and a savage smile, swooped down from the sky like a raging storm. They moved at breakneck speed, sweeping through the crowded streets where people were rushing to work, and attacked without hesitation. Cars were flipped over, windows shattered under their terrifying power, creating ear-piercing sounds that echoed everywhere. Superman, with his familiar red and blue costume, was flying in the sky to monitor the city. Suddenly realizing the threat, he charged into battle, his eyes flashing with heat power. However, this army was not an illusion. They were real individuals, powerful and brutal. They quickly took down members of the Superman family, both blood relatives and allies. Connor Kent, a young man with superhuman strength, was surrounded by a group of entities who used sledgehammer punches to defeat him, causing his body to slam into the concrete wall, creating large cracks. Supergirl, with golden hair and comparable strength, tried to fight back by shooting lasers from her eyes, but there were too many of them, and she was dragged across the road, leaving a trail of burning fire. This army did not stop there. This army targeted every superhero with significant strength. Characters like Steel or Power Girl were also defeated quickly, their bodies lying motionless on the cracked ground. The entire scene was observed from afar by Brainiac, a green entity with red dots on his head, sitting in his giant spaceship, the display screen flashing with chaotic images below. He smiled coldly, his emotionless eyes scanning the data, planning his next move. Meanwhile, Lex Luthor, with his shiny black suit and sharp, intelligent expression, was at the headquarters of Supercorp, the company he had once transferred to Superman. Supercorp, formerly LexCorp, was now a modern technology center with brightly lit laboratories and busy employees. He and his daughter, Lena Luthor, an intelligent young woman with long black hair and deep blue eyes, were suddenly drawn into a strange light. They were shrunk and locked into transparent glass jars, like museum specimens. The space around them shrank, and they found themselves flying into Brainiac's ship, where a series of miniature cities were stored. Superman continued to fight, his body moving like a streak of red and blue light, punching through a series of enemies. But then he came face to face with General Chakal, the leader of the army, a tall, muscular being with a husky voice. Chakal laughed loudly, revealing sharp teeth, and said, "Even on the planet Zarnia, we heard about Krypton, a peaceful planet with cutting-edge technology, but it still exploded. It must be scary to think of losing another homeland." Superman frowned, his eyes flashing, realizing that this was not Lobo, but someone else, but identical in appearance and power. From his spaceship hovering in Earth orbit, Brainiac watched everything through holographic screens that sparkled with data. His ship was a massive metal structure, with long corridors lit with a cold blue light and a series of miniature city pods suspended like crystal balls. He, with blue skin and red dots on his head representing infinite intelligence, moved smoothly between the devices, his fingers tapping on the controls to zoom in on the chaotic metropolis. Lex Luthor and Lena were trapped in the pods, the space around them a miniature version of Supercorp's office, with desks and computers still running. Lex, his face calm but his eyes flashing with calculation, whispered to his daughter, "This is Brainiac, he's collecting, like always." Lena, as intelligent as her father, nodded, her hair swaying slightly in the small space. She remembers her past, when she was given to Brainiac 13, a future version of himself as a child, and made part of the intelligence network. Meanwhile, Superman continues to confront Chakal. The battle scene takes place in the sky above Metropolis, with tall buildings in the background. Superman charges, his punch creating a shockwave, but Chakal deftly dodges, using chains from the planet Apocalypse to swing back. The chains glow red, forged from Darkseid's fire pit, making Superman feel the power of the gods. He steps back, takes a deep breath, and fires a heat ray, heating the air. Brainiac, from his ship, orders the Zarnian army Lobo-like entities, but real individuals from the past. They are the Bad Blood, a gang led by Chakal, who were once shrunk and stored by Brainiac. Now, they are released to serve his purpose, to harvest the power of superheroes. He needed energy to create the Brainiac Queen, a powerful female entity to expand his empire of knowledge. Superman, after the encounter, decided to find the real Lobo. He flew through space, past the fluffy white clouds and the starry night sky, to a distant planet where Lobo was hiding. Lobo, with his shiny metal space bike and his evil grin, was sitting in a space bar, surrounded by alien entities drinking. Superman rushed in, and the confrontation began, with punches echoing like thunder. On a desolate planet of red deserts and purple skies, Superman confronts Lobo. Lobo, a tall entity with gray skin and long hair, laughs. "You think I'm involved? Those guys aren't clones, they're the real thing." He explains about Chakal, the leader of the Bad Bloods, a gang that once ruled the city on Zarnia before Brainiac shrunk them. Flashbacks appear. Chakal leads the gang through the chaotic streets, with fire and screaming. Then Brainiac's ship appears, shrinking the entire thing. Superman and Lobo decide to work together temporarily. They escape Earth through the Green Lantern's blockade, using a space bike. Superman's bike is a shiny machine with a roaring engine, speeding through the dark, starry space. They meet Space Cabbie, a jovial entity with an old space taxi, painted bright yellow, floating among the meteors. Space Cabbie, with his cap and cheerful voice, tells the rumors Brainiac is looking to expand his mind by creating a new entity. But before he can finish, Chakal and Bad Blood attack. A battle breaks out in space, with lasers flying and spaceships exploding into bright debris. Lobo pretends to betray Superman to join Bad Blood, defeating him in a fierce battle. Superman lies on the deck, bruised and bleeding, but that was the plan. On Brainiac's massive spaceship, its polished metal walls reflecting the cold blue light of its flickering control panels, Superman was dragged down a long hallway. The chains from Apocalypse were wrapped tightly around his body, glinting in the dim light, his powers held back like a shell of steel. Lobo, with a savage grin that revealed sharp teeth and long tangled hair, walked alongside Chakal, the leader of the Bad Bloods. Chakal, a tall, muscular being with a hoarse, booming voice, patted Lobo on the shoulder as if welcoming a new member to his gang. The air on the ship was heavy, with the hum of engines and the smell of burning metal, making Superman feel suffocated despite his superhuman strength. Brainiac waited in the central hall, a green being with red dots on his head that glowed like artificial stars, his emotionless eyes scanning the new prisoner. "Suck his power," he ordered in a mechanical, unwavering voice. "We need the energy to complete our plan." The Zarnian entities, with their ashen skin and tattered leather costumes, laughed loudly, their laughter echoing like thunder in the quiet space. They pushed Superman into an energy cell, where glowing tubes connected to his body began to drain his life. Superman felt the hot energy leave his body, like blood from an invisible wound. His vision blurred under the glare of the device. Meanwhile, Supergirl and Kenan Kong, the Chinese Superman whose red and gold costume glittered in the ship's lights, were silently plotting their escape from a nearby cell. Supergirl, with her golden hair and determined blue eyes, whispered through the energy wall, "We have to break this system. My brother is in danger." Kenan, a youthful entity with power from 8 different sources, nodded, his muscles tensing as he tested the power. They worked together, Supergirl using her heat vision to heat the walls, creating cracks that sparkled like spider webs, while Kenan used his seismic powers to vibrate the deck, making the metal creak. But Brainiac had predicted it. He activated the defenses, and hovering robots with laser arms rushed in, shooting red beams of light that cut through the air. Supergirl dodged deftly, her body flying through the hallway, punching one robot into flying metal shards. Kenan charged in, using his fire power to create an energy ball, incinerating several of his enemies, the flames illuminating his sweaty face. However, they were too many, and they were caught, their exhausted bodies lying on the cold floor, breathing heavily. Lobo, feigning loyalty to Bad Blood, watched from afar. He sensed the betrayal coming from Brainiac, whose crimson eyes swept the hall. Chakal whispered to him, "We've done our part. It's time to leave." But Brainiac turned back, a cold smile on his green face. "You think you can leave so easily? I need you to test the Queen." The Brainiac Queen emerged from the darkness, a tall female entity with similarly blue skin, long jet black hair that rippled like water, and the power she radiated made the air vibrate. She lunged at Bad Blood, her punch sending shockwaves through the Zarnian entities, spraying green blood like rain, staining the deck. Superman, from his cell, watched in horror. He struggled, his muscles tensing under his chains, but some of his energy had been drained, leaving him weaker than ever. Lobo, truly enraged, roared, "You took my family." He charged in, punching open the cell door, sending shattered metal flying everywhere, and freed Superman. The chaos that ensued, with fire and explosions echoing, led into a larger uprising. The cold blue light of Brainiac's ship was replaced by the fireballs that exploded from the battle. Superman, weakened but still standing, burst out of the cell with the help of Lobo. His body, with its tattered costume and red wounds, moved like lightning, punching an approaching robot, the metal fragments falling to the floor like meteors. Lobo, with equal strength, used his own chains to whip Brainiac Queen, creating a deafening screech of metal on metal. Supergirl and Kenan, freed from the chaos, joined the fight. Supergirl flew through the air, using her ice breath to freeze a group of robots, which shattered into icy shards that sparkled under the flashing lights. Kenan, activating his wind power, created a tornado that swept the enemy away, the wind howling through the hallway, carrying metal dust and debris. The Superman family, the House of L, is now united, with Connor Kent joining in from another cell, using his super speed to rush in, punching Brainiac Queen repeatedly, sending her body reeling back, cracks appearing in her blue skin. Lena Luthor, used by Brainiac as a sub-processor, is suffering terrible pain in the data network. The space around her is a virtual world of sparkling lines of code, but her body is shaking, sweat dripping down her pale face. She struggles internally, remembering the memory of being manipulated by Brainiac 13 as a child, the image of a child caught in a vortex of energy, becoming his avatar. "I am not your tool," she whispers, her hand touching the virtual console, trying to reverse the flow of energy. Brainiac, from the control center surrounded by holographic screens, summons his family, identical entities from the planet Kolu, under his control. Lil and Vril Dox appeared, with green skin and red dots on their heads, their eyes lifeless under the manipulation. They charged, lasers shooting from their eyes, cutting through the air, creating streaks of red light. Superman faced Vril, his punches colliding with the energy shields, sending shockwaves that shook the ship. Lobo fought Lil, using brute force to punch through the shields, green blood spattering his leather suit. Connor Kent, recognizing the Queen's power source, rushed to the main containment chamber. He used his strength to destroy the core, his hand touching the glowing sphere, causing it to explode into scattered energy fragments. The Queen weakened, her body shrinking, her long hair tangled, and she fell to the floor with a groan, her light fading like a candle. "The power source is gone," Brainiac roared, his mechanical voice now laced with anger. The uprising spreads, with other prisoners freed. Lex Luthor emerges from the container, determined despite his frail body, and begins planning to upload his consciousness into the system. He moves through the chaotic hallway, dodging the whirring lasers, and reaches for the main control panel, eyes flashing with sharp intelligence. The central hall of Brainiac's ship was now a chaotic battlefield, where the cold blue light of the control panels flickered and the red flames of the explosions flared. Sharp metal fragments flew everywhere, colliding with the walls with deafening screams, like the screams of a dying machine. Superman, though his power had been drained, remained standing, his body glistening with sweat under his tattered red and blue costume. He charged at Brainiac, his eyes flashing with determination, his punches sending shockwaves that shook the space. Each blow was a boom, like thunder, cracking the deck and sending metal fragments raining down. Brainiac, the green entity with red dots on its head now flickering weakly, staggered before Superman's power. His systems were collapsing, the holographic screens around him showing a decreasing rate of knowledge, 99%, 80%, 60%. Lex Luthor, from a hidden console in the corner of the lobby, his fingers flew across virtual keys, uploading his consciousness into Brainiac's network, erasing his data. Sweat rolled down Lex's face, his sharp eyes glinting in the flickering light, but his voice remained calm. "You can't keep all this knowledge, Brainiac. It will burn you." Brainiac's family, Lil and Vril Dox, now free of his control, turned against him. Vril, with blue skin and alert eyes, fired lasers from his hands, cutting through Brainiac's energy shields, leaving behind glowing spiderweb-like cracks. Lil, with equal power, joined forces with Supergirl, creating an energy storm that swept away the remaining security robots. Supergirl, her golden hair flying, used her icy breath to freeze a group of robots, which shattered into sparkling shards of ice, falling to the floor like crystal. Lobo, standing next to Chakal, swung his chains, lashing Brainiac, each blow creating a deafening clang like metal clashing in a god's forge. The Brainiac Queen, weakened by the loss of her power source, still tried to fight. She lunged at Superman, her sharp nails glinting with metallic light, but Connor Kent, with superhuman speed, rushed forward, punching her straight in the chest, sending her body flying, hitting the wall with a loud bang. The energy from Queen's body disintegrated. Her long, tangled black hair gradually faded, and she fell to the floor, the red light in her eyes fading like a candle in the wind. Brainiac, now almost completely insane, roared in a mechanical voice mixed with despair. "I just want to leave a legacy. A real family, not soulless cities and bottles." Superman, stopping in midair, looked him straight in the eye, his voice low but powerful. "You do not understand the value of life, Brainiac. All living things search for meaning, but you choose the wrong way." He threw a final punch, penetrating the last of Brainiac's shields, causing his body to shake, the red dots on his head to disappear, and he fell to the floor, motionless. The ship began to collapse, the metal walls cracked, Fire erupted from the floor, and the air was hot with thick black smoke. Superman, along with Supergirl, Keenan Kong, and Connor Kent, rushed through the crumbling corridor, rescuing the remaining prisoners. Lobo, with a savage grin, pulled Chakal and the few surviving Bad Blood members, flying out of the ship on a gleaming space bike. Lex Luthor, having finished wiping the data, collapsed against the control panel, breathing heavily, consciousness fading. A deafening explosion marked the final demise of Brainiac's ship, a giant fireball blazing through the blackness, like a star exploding before it dies. Shining metal fragments flew everywhere, floating among the distant stars, reflecting a dim light. Superman, carrying his allies, flew back to Earth, his body weary, but his eyes still bright with hope. They landed in Metropolis, where the afternoon sun stretched across the skyscrapers, sparkling like crystal spires. The city was recovering, with rescue teams moving through the streets, repairing damaged buildings, and people slowly returning to their daily lives, laughter echoing among the rubble. In the main office of Supercorp, Lex Luthor sat in a luxurious leather chair, but his eyes were empty, as if the sharp mind that had once amazed the world had disappeared. The upload of his consciousness into Brainiac's system and the deletion of the data had taken away his memories. Lena Luthor, standing beside him, placed her hand on his shoulder, her long black hair swaying in the light from the large windows. "You'll remember," she whispered, her voice filled with determination, her deep blue eyes flashing with the light of a new plan. She began to search through the remaining data from Supercorp, searching for a way to restore her father and use the remnants of Brainiac's knowledge to help humanity. Lobo, after the battle, stood on a hill overlooking Metropolis, his space bike parked beside him, gleaming in the red sunset. He laughed loudly, his voice echoing like thunder. "See you later, Superman. Don't make me come back for you again." He launched the bike, the engine roaring, and shot off into space, leaving a trail of light like a shooting star in the glittering night sky. However, the darkness had not yet lifted. Before the ship exploded, Brainiac, in his final moments, launched the Brainiac Queen into deep space. Her body, now a mass of immobile metal, floated among the meteors, the faint glow of her energy core flickering, waiting for someone to accidentally activate it. At the same time, in another dimension, a roar echoed from hell. Doomsday, his gray body covered in spikes, punched open the red stone door, fire bursting around him. His eyes flashed with unbridled rage, signaling a new threat was approaching. Metropolis, peaceful under the sunlight, still held mysteries and dangers. Superman, standing atop a tall building, his red cape billowing in the wind, looked down on the city. He knew the fight was not over.